Okay, so what I'm going to do now then is show you a set of brilliant slides prepared by Catherine on the basis of the committee's visit to Burnholm, and to give you a kind of summary of all the preparatory work and thinking we've been doing as a committee, and with Catherine as the musical director, to help you see, as Catherine said here, the kind of thinking and decision-making processes that we've been trying to work through in relation to the pandemic and beyond, and hopefully back into a safe present in person playing opportunity. Don't expect you to read every bit of this slide. It's just there to give you an idea, the kind of brainstorming we've been doing, the kinds of ideas we had as we started to move in Britain out of the COVID restrictions into options for playing, whether that was going to involve shorter rehearsals, whether we were going to have to go to fortnightly, which is where we're kind of at, whether that was going to be in the summer, whether it was going to be September. We as a committee, we met more than you might imagine, and we had a lot of conversations about what we thought was going to be possible. We did start this conversation last summer, actually, but as things transpired in the UK, by the time we'd kind of got our heads around that little window of opening in the summer, it was really too late to plan anything significant for the autumn. We're really encouraged by Making Music and lots of organisations that have been helping small groups like ours map out what's involved in the prospect of return to playing. It's not just about the practicalities of the space, it's not just about what the musical director can offer in terms of music, but there's so much involved now in terms of people's comfort level, confidence and willingness to go back in a space together, what kind of pieces are going to be possible in a socially distanced orchestra. Some of you will know, some of you who've been coming to our Thursday night ASO virtuals, and I know there's a couple of people here involved in this, we have become international during COVID. So we've been having these fantastic playing experiences in York and in California together, which has been wonderful, but obviously that's going to be reshaped as we move into this new world. So we've had a lot to think about there. And so after a lot of conversation and discussion, we've arrived at this alternating programme of weekly and in-person, virtual and what my university insists on calling present in-person sessions. So it's going to be fortnightly for playing at Burnholm and fortnightly on the Zoom for the foreseeable future, we imagine. And what I'm going to do in the next section here is just give an overview of the safety measures we've put in place for playing in person. Don't worry, there's lots of pictures. If I'd been doing these slides, they'd have had 6 bullet points each and it would have been extremely dull. Fortunately, Catherine has done the slides and they're extremely visual. I feel like doing a wavy line thing. Back in time, remember before the pandemic times, we used to bike, walk, drive and arrive at the centre at Burnholm. The front part of which everyone will remember is now a lovely, very inviting York Library space, and the back of which is our very large, very accommodating rehearsal room. So Chris and I, after quite a lot of discussions with Katie, manager at Burnholm, we've talked through all the various pros and cons and what they'll do and what we need to do to go back into that space, and we felt really confident. I think, would you agree with me on that one, Chris? Felt really confident, having talked to Katie, that they were ready to welcome us back.
We're the last group to go back, and yeah, they really want us back.
Yes, we are. They've got their karate and their St John's Ambulance and all sorts of groups have already gone back in, so they're really geared up for this now. For those of you who are planning on coming next week, you'll remember that there's a car park at the library end and a car park at the back or at the hall side of Burnholm. You can park in either, but we're going to be going in directly into the rehearsal space. That's what we've negotiated with Burnholm. We won't be going in through the library, which would make us amenable to using the library and the Burnholm Centre's own track and trace and make them sort of responsible for us. They can't do that because we need to keep a register of everyone who attends. So I don't know how to do an animated arrow, but we've got one. So the idea is that we'll use the back. Some of you will remember this is the old car park before the refurbishment of the building, when we used to park directly at the back of the hall. The easiest place will be to park there and go in directly into the actual doors, into the hall itself, rather than in the front through the library and through the seating area in the cafe. So what will happen for those of you who are coming next Thursday is that we'll be using, there's two fire exits and entrances into the rehearsal space, and we'll be using both of those to let people in, and there'll be a very clear note, some of you will be able to see that, in each window, in each door window, saying who should go in which entrance. The one furthest from the road, so the one furthest into the site at Burnholme, is for flutes, violins, recorders, clarinets and saxophones. There's going to be lots of information, posters and notices as you go in, reminders to put a mask on, reminders for those who aren't able to just have a sticker or a neck lanyard telling us that you can't. There'll be hand san, there'll be either a track and trace QR code to scan as people come in, or you'll be able to just we'll take a record of contact detail for you when you do that. You might gather from this that the committee are going to have to be very involved and very bossy in terms of managing the space on Thursday nights. We're gearing up for that now, and we'll guide you as to where to leave your instruments and where to sit. So there's a huge amount of restrictions on the space, what we can and can't do in there, but hopefully once people are in, sat down, it will feel a bit like an orchestra, albeit one that's quite widely distanced, and I'll show you that in a minute. The second entrance, for those of you with larger instruments mainly, will be going in through the set of doors that's nearest to the road, and we'll sweep you into a place where you can put cases and securely stash that for larger instruments. There'll be a space against you can see there the sort of back wall, but we'll guide you into that. You don't need to remember all this now, it's just to help reassure you that we've kind of thought all of this through. The interesting aspect of this picture, really, as you see through the doors, is the chairs and the spaces between the chairs. So there'll be places for those of you with larger instruments to stash that on tables at the back. For most of us with smaller instruments, returning to playing in person will be more than ever a matter of keeping all our stuff with us and gathered around our chairs, and using the remainder of the room as little as possible, because we have to clean it and make sure it's COVID safe before we go out. As you come in, as we've already discussed, there'll be hand sanitizer, the QR code, or an opportunity to give us a name and contact details. And this is what I really want everyone to see. As you might imagine, an enormous amount of work we've been doing thinking about a return to playing has been the distance between chairs. So this really is going to be a distanced orchestra. The committee and volunteers have been in to measure out the room, to map out the room, to look at realistically how many chairs and spaces we can get into it. And this is the kind of configuration we're starting to work with. The centre themselves they've moved the stage around, and that's where Catherine will be sitting. As you can see, that's her now at the end, starting to re-own her space as musical director in the room, which we're all looking forward to. This is a reminder that for those of us who are going to be coming back to playing together either next week or perhaps a little bit further on down the line, ASO is not a bubble, which means that we can't bubble people up for this. It's too complicated, and everyone has to maintain appropriate social distancing between every other player, and that's the bottom line for what we need to continue playing in person. And those spaces are pretty big, as you'll see from this. Sorry, I can't read the text on this slide because I've my Zoom.
The toilets that you can access the toilet by going through that back door.
Okay. So yeah, just a reminder then that the only way we'll be going into the centre, into the library space of the centre, is through that door that some of you will remember in the sort of top left of the room, and Burnholme have sorted the loos out so that only one cubicle's open at any one time. So it's very much going to be a one in, one out matter for that. This is Catherine's warning for anyone coming back who plays what she's calling, a bassoonist is calling, a dribbly instrument. A string player would never use such language of our blowing brethren. But if you play a dribbly instrument, we're asking people to just bring a cloth, possibly a small Tupperware or a little box that you can drip into, and make sure that gets picked up and taken away on your way out. The biggest change, I think, for many of us will be that, you know, once we're in there and we've unpacked, it is going to be a matter of plonking ourselves down on a chair and pretty much staying in place for the whole of the rehearsal. There's not going to be options to get up and move around or socialise. People are going to have, and the next slides will make this very clear, their own stand, all your own bits and bobs, all your own pencils, and bring your own music, and I'll talk us through this in a minute. For people like me who are bluntly enormously disorganised and usually rely on the services of a good friend for stands and pencils, this is going to be an enormous challenge. But I think once we all get our heads around it, it will start to become, you know, ordinary, reasonably good practice. We'll have to be sitting. We're going to be playing masked, except for those of us who have to blow into something to play, in which case the masks can come off while playing and then back on while sitting and listening. I'm not going to talk through the exit arrangements in an enormous amount of detail because there'll be lots of people there on the night, the committee members and Catherine, and who can help guide us in and out of the space, and you'll forget this if I go through it in detail before that. The other big change, of course, that is really sad for us, but is absolutely necessary, is that we have to have a registration record of everyone who's going to be there for these sessions. So instead of it being an open orchestra, which it's always been, a turn up and play orchestra, there's going to be an enrolment system via Eventbrite. Everyone, that we can't share music on the night. We can't touch and share music on the night, so there will be a link to electronic music that people can print off, and we know printing can be a real pain, so we're sorry about that, but we can't see any other alternative to it, and you need your own stuff, a mask, hand sanitizer, pencils, anything you need on the night. But it has required, as you might imagine, a gigantic amount of work to get the show, we hope, on the road next Thursday. But we're also, Catherine more than anyone, I mean, is beyond excited and delighted at the prospect that there might be some in-person playing coming along, and we're really, really looking forward to seeing some people, at least in person, fairly soon.